Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Golden podcast. I have the honor of being here today with Dr. Mike Berkley, and he's here because this is where we do interviews with world-class TCM community leaders to discover the stories, habits, psychology, secrets, and everything else that led to their success. So thank you for being here today, Mike.
Oh, it's my pleasure, and I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. You and I have known each other for quite a while now, and I think that's through Aborn because for those of you who don't know Mike, that's too bad. You should, and you will today, and that's primarily what I want to dig into today because people like Mike have done so much for the forward movement of Chinese medicine, period, in the West, and for sure for integration, because he, if I get anything wrong, you correct later, Mike, but you graduated from the Pacific College of Oriental Reproductive Medicine in '96. You've seen a lot change since then, and since then, so you've practiced for 21 years, and you're the first acupuncturist in the U.S. to completely devote and specialize in the care and treatment of infertility.
That's correct, perfectly stated.
That is quite a badge because, because of the inroads people like you have made and the research that's been done, etc. There's so many people hanging that are able to just hang a I treat fertility flag or shingle, in our industry now, and but it's really great to find out, and that's what we're going to do today. Dig through your story of how you pioneered that, because that's. You did it with like canoes and
exactly.
So the Berkley Center for Reproductive Wellness has been around since a year after you graduated, '97.
That's correct.
He's in Manhattan. He's got the gazunt to kick ass out there. So and he's been doing it ever since then. I've visited your clinic. I've had the pleasure a long time ago with Lauren, and that is quite the operation, or it was then. I assume that's 10 years probably that things have changed, but you work hand in hand with a good handful or many of New York's most prominent fertility and IVF clinics or centers, and you believe, as these are your words, I believe it takes a village, and the new gold standard for reproductive medicine is the integration of Chinese and Western medical protocols.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And so backpedaling, do you mind starting way back and kind of giving, I don't know if everyone loves this, but I love hearing the story because acupuncturists come from all walks of life. And
sure.
It's not something you fall into after you graduate high school most often.
Yeah, indeed.
But yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so I guess back in the day, let's see, I think I started school when I was about 31 or 32 for acupuncture. And before that, for many years, I had been involved in the electronics business.
Okay.
And I owned a couple of different types of businesses. I won't explain this because it'll take up too much time in the show, but I was a semiconductor broker.
Oh, okay.
I was selling electronic components. And then I got out of that and I went into manufacturing computers. And when I say manufacturing, don't misunderstand. I wasn't Dell or IBM. I would just buy motherboards and 10 megabyte hard drives, and I had a guy that could put them together and we'd sell them, and we did very well. And then I went out of business, and I went to work for a company selling computers. Throughout this whole period of time, I was studying martial arts with a guy whose name is Tom Bissio.
Okay. And
Tom Bissio is a very renowned acupuncturist and body worker. And when I say body worker, I don't mean tweener. I mean, Tom can turn your head 365 degrees and fix it. He's just he's a bone setter.
Okay.
And an acupuncturist. And I had been studying Filipino martial arts with him for about 10 years. And at some point, he said to me, I've spent about 10 years teaching you how to kill people. And he said, you should consider learning how to help people. And I'm like, yeah, that's all good. I don't know, sell my computers and make my money. And that's what I was about. And but at this point, I was going out of business, out of another business. It's very convoluted. I took my business in San Francisco. I failed there. I came back here. It was on the tail end of this market that I was in. And so I had this conversation with Tom. And then one day this odd thing happened, which was that a newspaper found its way onto my desk. And the reason I say that's odd is because I never read this newspaper before. I wouldn't go and get it, and I haven't read it since. But the newspaper was called The Village Voice, which was a very popular newspaper in New York City. Kind of an alternative newspaper, it shows a lot about music and restaurants and all this stuff, kind of a hip thing. And so I opened it up because I hadn't much to do because I was going out of business. So I just threw my feet up on the desk and opened The Village Voice. And I see this, I guess it was a quarter-page ad, and it said something like, Pacific College of Oriental Medicine. We've been in San Diego for 21 years, and we're pleased to announce that we're going to be opening in New York City. We invite all of you to an open house. And I basically thought acupuncture was a bunch of quackery. I still do. No, I'm just kidding. Just a joke. Just a joke. I thought it was a bunch of quackery, but I just had this conversation with Tom Bissio, and he's an acupuncturist.
Right.
So I said, let me go to this thing, and see these idiots who don't know anything and think that they do, and I'll just go because it'll be a fun evening, and it'll give me a good laugh.
Okay.
So I went, and what I discovered was highly articulate, extremely intelligent, accomplished, knowledgeable people giving this presentation. And I, at that very minute, got really excited and got chills down my spine. I said, holy moly, this is pretty different than what I thought. And I'm going to take a shot at this. So at this time, I was working for a company called Horizon Technologies. It's a funny story. I was a computer salesman because I had gone out of business, and now I'm in my own. I'm working for these guys now. I realize my timeline sounds off, but that's just because I was involved in and out of so many things I can't really keep track. But I was working for Horizon Technologies when I started to go to Pacific. So when I went to Pacific, I was just taking one class. It was Intro to Chinese Medicine because I wasn't going to sign up big time. I didn't know if I was going to like it. So I then the next trimester comes along, and I take two classes, and I say to my boss, his name was Phil. I said, Phil, can I meet with you after work? And he says, fine. I said, listen, I'm terribly sorry to say this. I can't come to the sales meetings anymore because I'm going to school. But, I've been selling for 20 years. I don't need to come to this stuff. He said, it's fine, no problem. So then the following trimester, I took a couple more classes. And I said, Phil, can I meet with you after work? And he said, sure. So I said, Phil, listen, I can't work Wednesday evenings anymore. I can't work Wednesdays anymore because, I'm in school now and I have this thing. But, I'll work every other day. And don't worry, I'll close deals. It's all good. And he's like, oh, it's fine. It's no problem. No problem. It's all good. So then the next trimester comes, and I take 4 classes. And I say, Phil, can I have a meeting with you after work? And he says, sure. So I'm like, Phil, I can only work 1 day a week. And he goes like this. He puts out his hand, and he says, Mike, I had high hopes for you. You're a great guy. It's been a pleasure to work with you, and I wish you the very best. So he very gently fired me. And, and I understood, of course. And so then I went to acupuncture school full time. And, I had been out of school for quite a while, so it took me a minute to get readjusted to school. But I loved it. I enjoyed studying. And I was very determined because I had been in and out of several businesses, and I was 30 or 31. And I was like, if you fail at this, what are you going to do next? So I was kind of an MMA fighter, and it's my debut, and like I can't lose no matter what. I can't lose. So I studied really, really hard, like fanatically. Like, I mean, like I was in Barnes and Nobles. In Barnes and Nobles in Manhattan, they would have tables and chairs, and you could literally hang out there all day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and they had a cafe, so you could get coffee
Lots
and
of
a
coffee.
sandwich. I was studying all day. I mean, when I wasn't in school, I was just studying. I constantly, like everybody in Barnes and Nobles knew me,
Yeah.
and so I I did that, and I completed, the course. I just did acupuncture. I didn't do herbs. And then when I graduated, I went to work as an acupuncturist, and I went back to school, and I did the herbal program.
Okay.
I didn't want to do them together because I felt that each discipline required complete focus, and to do both at once is kind of like studying piano and studying tap dancing at the same time. I mean, I don't think you can get really good. Please forgive me with respect to the audience. I just don't think you can get really good at both, studying both at the same time.
Right, right.
It's like martial arts. It's like anything. A martial arts teacher once said to me, you can't chase two rabbits.
Right.
So anyway, I went hard, and I studied, and I became, pretty good as a student. And then I remember getting out of school, and I guess it was a clinical depression. I'm not really sure, but when I went to Pacific College, it was very, it was extraordinarily competitive. I went to school with really smart people, really aggressive people. Aggressive in the sense that everybody wanted to get an A and a 100 on the test. I mean, there was no cheat Twinkies. You know what I mean? Everybody was hardcore, and you had to take tests all the time. And we had these things called the first year comprehensive exam, and the second year comps, and the third year comps. Tremendous pressure, study all the time, and working in clinic and all of this. So one day, what happens is I graduate, and I go home, and guess what I have to do the next day? Nothing.
Yeah, open a clinic.
Nothing.
No.
I don't have to study.
Yeah.
I don't have to pass any tests. I don't have to write any papers. I don't have to do any presentations. And what happened to me was, because I was functioning up here for so long, and now I was like purposeless. And I got to tell you, I've never had this before, and God willing, I'll never have it again. But I literally couldn't get out of bed. Like if I had to pee, I would have to take like 40 minutes and talk myself into getting out of bed to pee.
Wow.
Like I was severely depressed.
Right.
Severely, man. I don't mean suicidal. I didn't have any suicidal ideations, but I mean, I was just like, I felt like I weighed 600 pounds.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
This is just coming out of school. I just crashed from all that pressure to no pressure. Eventually, this lasted for about a week and a half. And it was very frightening because I didn't know if it was going to last forever. I didn't know what it was.
Right.
I mean, I knew I was depressed, but like, I didn't really fully get it. I was like, this is how I'm going to be from now. I'm going to be in a hospital, And I came out of it in a week and a half. And I took a deep breath. And it was also frightening. It's very frightening when you get out of school. Because when you're in school, you have nothing but support.
Right.
You have your classmates, your teachers, the dean. Everybody's there to help you,
Clearly.
Even though it's competitive.
Yeah.
People are helping. So now I was completely on my own. Like, I didn't have anybody to tell me what to do. And that's quite frightening. Like, freedom is very frightening. When you don't know what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
So
in any event, I moved forward emotionally. And I was very good friends with a guy in school. We opened a practice together, I guess right in the beginning of 97.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do fertility work, but it was a very different time then. Like, I would go and set up appointments with reproductive endocrinologists, and I was very aggressive about getting those appointments. I wasn't going to take no.
Right.
So I would make these appointments, and all of these guys were the nicest guys, but they would all do this. I don't know if you can see it through my glasses, but they go,
eye roll, subtext.
eye roll, eye roll.
Yeah.
And they just thought I was like a quack, probably was, and I probably am, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
so are they.
I mean, so are they. Right? I mean, they just couldn't fathom.
Right.
And I'll never forget, I'll tell you another cool story. There's a clinic in New York that I'm very friendly with. I know all the doctors, and they send me patients, and we go out to dinner all the time. But just to show you where I was at, I got a meeting with the medical director of this clinic. That's a big thing,
Right.
and it's a big guy in a big clinic.
Right.
And I go there with my office manager, and we sit in his conference room, and he says to me, and I say, listen, I'm doing this. Here's some empirical evidence. There's not a lot of data yet, but acupuncture's been around for almost 3,000 years, and it's been treating fertility for infertility for 3,000 years. They didn't have IVF in China 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago. Blah 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 blah. I tried to present my case, and he says to me, and remember, I'm a new practitioner, right? And he says to me, well, we'd love to send you patients for stress relief.
Right.
And I said to him, no.
Mm.
My manager is like kicking me under the table. I'm like, no, Dr. Jones, that's a fictitious name. I'm not here to treat your patients for stress relief. I'm here to create an improved hemodynamic milieu in your patient's ovaries and uterus, so we can help drive more FSH, LH, nutrients, oxygen, electrolytes to the follicles and help expedite the what's the word? Getting rid of debris, dead cells.
Right.
And he kind of looked at me like I was crazy, and I said, so can we move forward based on that? And he said, well, I can't recommend that to my patients because I don't have any data, I don't have anything. And I stood up, literally, I stood up, and I extended my hand, and I said, well, look, I'd like us to remain friends, but we're not going to do business together. But thanks for the meeting. And I left.
Wow, really? Okay. If you know Mike, you know this is likely true. So.
Because I had spent 4 years in acupuncture and almost 2 years in herbs. And listen, dude, I'm not a massage therapist. Now, no insult to massage therapists. Please, the audience, don't misunderstand. I just mean I'm not here to like rub your back and like relieve your stress.
Right.
I became an acupuncturist so I can treat, I can do internal medicine.
Right.
And so, and now, by the way, just many years forward, we're all good together in that clinic. I'm on their website, and they send me patients, and I send them patients, and it's not for stress relief. I just got a call today from a patient from another clinic, and this is a very well-known doctor who she's got lining issues. She's got like a 6 millimeter lining, so she wants me to help her with that. And this doctor, he's a very well-known reproductive endocrinologist, sends me the patient out of nowhere. Just said, go see Mike Berkley. So times have changed.
Right.
Doctors are actually referring patients to me. Some acupuncturists refer patients to me. It's a whole different world. And interestingly, when I was graduating, it's a very funny thing. My teachers would say, oh, this is a great time to be an acupuncturist. When I got licensed, nobody was doing acupuncture. I got licensed in 1970 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And like, you're in a great time right now. But it wasn't exactly true. No. But now it's a great time.
Mm-hmm.
Like people that are graduating now, acupuncture is very much accepted in every avenue. There's this whole new thing about using acupuncture to reduce the need for opioids. It's all over social media, right? So acupuncture's come a long way. But in any event, back to us, back to me. So when I first went into practice, I was treating everything, like every acupuncturist. I was treating neck pain and back pain and elbow pain and headaches and all that stuff. And I'll tell you a great story. It's my first fertility case. So you have to realize that I knew nothing about fertility. I just had the desire to engage in that practice. And I studied a little bit. I didn't study much. I mean, eventually I studied like an animal. I mean, once I got out of school, I read every darn Western reproductive medicine book and every Chinese medicine book on fertility. Well, there's not a lot of fertility books. I mean, there are now, but mostly they were gynecology books. But I did study very diligently. But at this point, I had just gotten out of school. So, I mean, I was worried about opening a practice. But anyway, a patient comes in, she's 40 years old. This is a great story. And I didn't know herbs yet. So I didn't do any herbs. And, man, I didn't know anything. I didn't know what FSH meant.
Right.
I was doing a strict TCM, diagnosis and treatment protocol. And this woman was 40 years old, and she had done multiple IUIs and several IVFs. Multiple IUIs meaning like maybe, I don't remember, 4 or 5, and then maybe, 3 IVFs or something. Failed. So, in those days, my office had a doorbell on it. So I'm treating this woman, not a long time, 3 months, 4 months. And my doorbell rings. And I open the door, and it's her. She's coming in for her appointment. And just the oddest thing happens. So she's standing in front of me, and her eyes start to get a little red. And she proceeds to, aggressively come towards me, quickly. So I had done a lot of martial arts for a lot of years. I mean, I'm 61, and I've been training more or less since I'm 17. And so I almost just went whoop and just elbowed her right in the face, just not meaning to.
Right.
A reaction, because this person was coming right at me, right?
Right.
And she grabs a hold of me, and I'm like, what the hell is going on? I remember, I'm a new practitioner. I don't know how to deal with people. I mean, I've always been an empathetic guy, but I mean, this is a new thing, right?
New scene, yeah.
And she bursts out crying, and I'm like, holy goodness, what's going on, man? And I'm thinking, let me tell you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I must have done some damage to her.
Oh, jeez.
Like she's going to tell me she's got this huge hematoma over here, or she can't feel anything in her left leg. I'm like, I'm going to be sued. I'm out of business. I'm done.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what's the matter? Are you okay? I don't even know what to say. And she separates herself from me, and she says, I'm pregnant. Now, I was ecstatic as well, but, I didn't have any experience. I know that so many pregnancies end in miscarriage. Right. We get excited when a patient gets pregnant, but that's nothing to get excited about. It's exciting when they're 13, 14 weeks.
Yeah. There's a baby.
But in any event, she got pregnant and had the baby. And it was a healthy, normal baby. And that really solidified my desire and helped even more as an impetus to drive me into that direction. And why did I choose fertility? Well, 2 reasons. Number 1, I wanted to do internal medicine. And number 2, I wanted to get really good at one thing. And again, this is not meant with any criticism at all, but if to the listeners, to the audience, to the women listeners, if any of you needed to do an IVF or an IUI, would you go to a podiatrist who spent 4 hours reading about IVF, or a chiropractor who learned to do, insemination? You wouldn't do that. You'd feel this person has no credibility whatsoever. How can a reproductive endocrinologist practice podiatry? Right. It doesn't make sense. Well, wait, maybe he's a dentist also. So, I didn't want to be one of these guys that treats everything, because I always felt like, this is my own opinion, I mean, no disrespect to anybody, but I just felt like there was a lack of credibility. And I used to see these ads that said, I'm an acupuncturist and I treat the following, and it would literally start with the letter A and end with the letter Z.
WHO list.
Yeah, I mean, like every single thing, and even things that aren't on that list, just like everything. Like, if you want to be rich, come to me. We'll do secret points, So I wanted to get good at one thing, and I wanted to specialize. And so when I had this case, that really pushed me over the edge, and I said, that's it. I was a great reader of literature. I was an avid reader. I was constantly reading. Well, for the next 10 years, I never read a book. I mean to say, I never read literature.
Right.
For the next 10 years, I strictly and only read reproductive medicine, both from the Western medical point of view, or the Western medical paradigm, and the Chinese medicine paradigm. And, I learned. And the other thing was, I had developed some friendships with reproductive endocrinologists, and I was the biggest pain in the butt that they've ever known, because I'd be constantly like texting them, calling them, emailing them. So listen, this patient has, da-da-dee-to-do, and she has da-da-da, and the husband has dee-to-do. What does this mean? And they'd be like, well, it could mean this, and it could mean that. And I'd be, yeah, but I don't understand. Why could it mean that? And I would annoy these guys and women to death, right? Constantly peppering them with questions.
I don't believe you, Mike.
Yeah, right. And then I, listen, can I sit in and watch you do a retrieval and a transfer? Oh, sure. So I got close with a lot of good people.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot. And one of the interesting things about Western reproductive medicine is there's really no consensus about how to perform, IVFs. Different doctors use different protocols, medically, they trigger it at different times. Talk about endometriosis. I mean, I went to an endometriosis seminar in Manhattan several years ago with a reproductive endocrinologist, my friend. We went together. And the people who attended and who spoke were the world's top people on endometriosis. I mean, people came literally from Egypt, from all over the world. And this is an amazing story I'm going to tell you. There was literally no consensus on how to treat it, on what the best case scenario is to treat it. Do you do it surgically? Do you do it medically? What do you do with the patient who wants to get pregnant? And then when I left the seminar with my friend, who's this reproductive doctor, I said, Joel, I don't understand. These are the most brilliant minds on earth, and none of them agree with each other. And he gave me a very interesting answer. He said, listen, we all know what we know, and we all use what we use to do the best that we can do. Right. And I was like, wow, that's wisdom. And so, that pertains to acupuncturists as well, right? You and I see the same exact patient. And I say, Spence, this is what I think, and da-da-da. And you say, no, Mike, I don't agree with you at all. This is what I think. And what's interesting is that we could both be right. Right. Because there's nuance, Anyway, I'm probably digressing, for which I apologize.
I love that, though. That's just practicing medicine. That's why it's not called the mastery of, or it's, okay, cool. We're practicing medicine, right? I mean, it's just the fact. Yeah.
Thanks, man. So as the years went on, as time went on, I developed more and more relationships with more and more doctors. And I think that we've done things for each other. I think the doctors have helped me by referring patients to me, and by helping to educate me. And I think what I've done for them is I've helped to educate them, to the potential benefits of including acupuncture as part of the reproductive protocol. I'll tell you a quick thing. There's a guy whose name is David Kleiner, Kreiner. And he's a reproductive endocrinologist in Long Island, which is a suburb near Manhattan. And Dr. Kreiner is an amazing guy, man. He's been a reproductive endocrinologist for 30 years. He's one of the first guys out there. And I had some office space with him in Long Island. I never took off. I don't want to bore you with the reasons, but I left it after a while. But he and I had done some lectures. He would have these Friday night lectures. He'd invite all his patients, and I would lecture with him. And, you know, he really didn't know me. It was just like, and I'd be lecturing, he'd be like, you know, who is this guy? Not that I'm such a brilliant guy. I don't mean to say that. I just mean like, he didn't expect an acupuncturist to know what I knew.
But he knows his stuff.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So anyway, what happened a couple of years ago is David Kleiner, this is the first in history in the world that I know of, went to acupuncture school for 4 years, not the 3 weekends or the 3-month nonsense. He went to 4-year acupuncture school while practicing reproductive medicine.
Wow.
And
Really?
David Kleiner is a licensed and board certified acupuncturist, but a real acupuncturist, and he's a reproductive endocrinologist.
Wow.
And he said to me that it was because of me that he did this.
Wow.
Like I inspired him to do this, which is obviously, you know, very gratifying for me, but I'm also extremely proud of him. And I think that what David Kleiner has done is both a great thing and a bad thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing because he actually broke the mold. I mean, this is nobody that's just out of school 2 years ago. This guy's a well-known, serious player. So if he's doing it, you know who he's having dinner with every night. He's going to ASRM. All he knows is reproductive doctors, so he's talking to them. So that's good. Why is it bad? You know, it's bad because if every reproductive endocrinologist becomes an acupuncturist, we're screwed. But
Yeah.
but I don't think that's going to happen.
Is it? Can I ask you a question about? Do you know much about his experience? Because when I first started going to school, one of my favorite teachers is really fiery Chinese guy. He's like, it's easy for you guys after studying Chinese medicine to go to Western medicine because it's reductionist, but to do the opposite, to study a reductionist medicine and then come to Chinese medicine is a huge feat. Like, what was this guy's experience like? That's pretty. I don't know any reproductive endocrinologist that would do that. That's for sure.
Yeah, nor do I. I mean, I don't know what his experience was in school, but I suspect it was pretty easy for him, and I'll tell you why. Because when, you know, I've never been to medical school, but I mean, we all know that it's brutal. Right? I mean, we all know that medical school is like, you know, you can have no girlfriend, no husband, no boyfriend, and if you do, you'll end up, you know, separating. I mean, it's just brutal. So when you have that kind of work ethic, you know, yeah, acupuncture's hard, but, you know,
He's a smart guy.
I just think he studied hard and did it. I don't think it was a big deal for him. And he was relaxed. It wasn't like, oh, if I fail, what am I going to do? You know, the guy's doing very well without acupuncture. So I think it was more like fun for him.
Right.
Like when I went, it was like, holy man, this is what I'm going to do. You know, this is like serious. I can't mess around. I can't mess up. Like, you know, when you're really relaxed, that's when you can accomplish huge things.
Yeah.
So I think he was fine with it. And I don't know. I mean, I don't speak to him that much now, but I should call him and find out, like, really how many patients he's treating with acupuncture.
Right.
But for anybody listening to this, if you're, you know, if you want to check him out, David Kleiner. I don't know the name of his clinic, but he's a terrific guy.
I should try and
He should be in the ABORM.
Right. Good call.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I should interview him on here too.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great guy to interview.
Yeah. Cool.
Right.
He must have just been a unique fellow to not just, I mean, it's unique physicians that even take the weekend courses, right?
Right.
Because most REs I know are so, I don't know, so far down the rabbit hole. I mean, they were specialists that have been in school for, you know, a quarter of their life.
Yeah.
You know, so for them to delve into something that is so, you know, now more so, but is when he went, you know, even less so rooted in evidence based. But one thing I would love to digress to, because you'd have be able to shed some good light on this. You started working with IVF docs, late 90s. Between then and now, holy shit, their industry has changed a lot as well. And the recognition, just like acupuncture, by the public, and the acceptance, and once you get down the rabbit hole, you and I both know that they're not always practicing evidence-based medicine either. It's up to them to kind of figure out their way and see what's best for their patients, which is
Sure.
really nice to see, right? But what's that look like? Because you've seen it from the day where day 2, 3 embryos are being transferred to the stuff we're seeing now. It's
Yeah, there's a lot of changes going on right now. Some new interesting discussion that's going on is the value of PGD.
right.
And
Pre-implantation genetic diagnostics.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's a guy whose name is Jeffrey Braverman, also somewhere on Long Island. And he's not a reproductive endocrinologist. He was actually an OBGYN, but he just quit being a obstetrician and just went into fertility treatment. And he specialized in immunological disorders and stuff. And he did a study with somebody else whose name I don't recall, but they basically found that if you transfer bad embryos, meaning aneuploidic embryos, frequently healthy babies are born as a result of these bad embryos.
Right.
So there's no consensus on this either, but kind of what some of the new thinking is like, forget the PGD, just transfer it.
Right.
Because it could be good even though it looks bad. If it's bad, you can abort. Oh, you know what? I'm going to ask you to hold on one quick second.
Okay.
I'm just almost out of power. Hold on a minute. Sorry.
No, that's okay, Mike.
You're right back. So sorry.
No problem. We'll keep following with you here. I'm just going to touch on, I attend the same conferences you do, ASRM when I feel like I need to, the Canadian equivalent to that, which is CFAS, and these are all fertility and andrology related societies that govern the country essentially, and the way their practitioners practice, and the debates that they set up between experts in the field, and just the differences in opinions and thoughts on stuff that seemingly is super solid evidence-based scientific reproductive medical practices just isn't the case. And it's nice as an acupuncturist to get down far enough down a specialized rabbit hole to see that. And because it gives you confidence that if you really, for me at least, I speak for myself, that if I focus on my patients and use, the medicine that we have and integrated with, these other people that REs that I'm, good friends with as well, in these parts of the world, it really truly is that, how did you put it, that it takes a village, the new gold standard, because we're really focusing on different things and can really complement one another. So hopefully that gives people confidence.
Yeah, well, that's very well stated. I mean, here's the bottom line medically. The bottom line medically is this. Let's just talk about in vitro fertilization. You give a patient gonadotropins, develop follicles, retrieve eggs, do ICSI or not, create embryos, and transfer them. So the success of an IVF depends on several factors. No mitigating disease, like for example, PCOS patients are twice as likely to miscarry as the non-PCOS population. So endometriosis can cause infertility even in the absence of tubal damage. So no mitigating diseases, a healthy lining,
right.
A normally functioning immune system, good sperm
Right.
and good egg.
Right.
And so if you look at IVF, they give the patient gonadotropins, stimulate folliculogenesis, retrieve eggs from the follicles, mix them with the sperm, get an embryo, and transfer it. So this is not to knock IVF, because there's been more than 3 million babies born as a result of IVF. So IVF is a great thing. But a lot of IVFs, perhaps most, don't work.
Right.
And here's why they don't work. Because, let me restate. When you have a patient, what you need, forget all the things I said, at the most essential piece. The most essential piece is you need a good egg and a good sperm. So when a reproductive endocrinologist does a retrieval and fertilizes the egg and transfers the embryo, they're only transferring what the patient is presenting.
Right.
You have this guy's sperm and you have her egg. But if neither one of them are good, if the sperm is bad or the egg is bad, the woman's not going to get pregnant, or she's going to miscarry, have a chemical pregnancy. So IVF is a very mechanical thing.
Right.
It's a very mechanical thing. It's like the difference between acupuncture and IVF, from my perspective, is that what acupuncture is trying, it's a very interesting thing. What I say to patients is, it sounds quite odd, but I'm not really here to try to get you pregnant.
Right.
And they kind of look at me perplexed, with a perplexed look,
Did I come to the right place?
Yeah, exactly. I specialize in back pain. What are you doing here? No. So they said, what do you mean? And I said, listen, I can't get you pregnant, Only you can get you pregnant.
Right.
You and your husband, or you and your partner. I can't do anything. I can't get you pregnant. But what I can do is I can improve your chances of getting pregnant by potentially improving egg quality and lining quality, or trying to regulate the period. Because if the cycle's not regulated, you don't know when to have intercourse, because when do you ovulate? This kind of thing, right? So it's not really about getting the patient pregnant. It's about look, let's talk about boxing.
Right.
Okay? You can't say that you can make up your fighter. I'm managing a fighter, make believe. I can't say I'm going to make my fighter win.
Right.
I can only say I'm going to train him to the best of my ability, give him all the knowledge that I have, but then it's up to him, right? So that's how it is with our patients. I'm going to try to improve the egg quality. I'm going to try to improve the lining quality and de-stress the patient, I admit. And then she's going to get pregnant or not. Right. But with IVF, it's just taking the egg, taking the sperm, putting it together, and transferring the embryo. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot more to getting pregnant than IVF. There's improving the constituent components that are necessary to get pregnant.
Right.
So acupuncture is the best thing to do while going through IVF.
Yeah, and proceeding.
Because most causes of infertility, the largest cause of infertility, the biggest cause, is egg quality. Right. Issues.
Right. Yeah. But primarily because of age of the woman.
That's right.
But I had in the efforts to produce video, for my clinic website, et cetera, I interviewed a couple of local REs and good friends, of mine, and they of course talked about that stress piece, and anything that someone can do to relieve stress will benefit them in my treatment protocols, which is great. Step one, but step two went on to say, that IVF basically is a tool or a technique that gets couples or women or couples over a hurdle. But we don't do anything really to help with prevention of miscarriage unless we go into some of this PGD, maybe. But what acupuncture and Chinese medicine is doing for people is creating more of an optimal environment for eggs to flourish in, for sperm to flourish in, and then for a pregnancy to carry.
Absolutely.
And I love that.
Yeah, 100%. By the way, just getting back to PGD for a second, just briefly.
Can you explain that to people, because that might be a little bit beyond?
Well, so PGD, as you said, is pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, and what they do is they do PGD on day 5, and in the old days they did a PGD on an embryo on day 3, and they took out a blastomere, which is a cell, and the general consensus was taking out one cell from an embryo wasn't going to harm the embryo, and it probably didn't. And the reason they switched to day 5 was because they would find these minor mosaicisms. The eggs weren't good; they were aneuploidic on day 3, and they would throw them in the garbage. But what then they discovered is that if you have a day 3 embryo that has a minor mosaicism and you let it stay in the petri dish for 2 days more, many times the mosaicism corrected, so they had a good embryo. So now what they do is they don't do that anymore. They do PGD on a day 5 embryo, which is a blastocyst, and they don't take a cell. They take a little bit of the trophectoderm, which is going to be the placenta, essentially. So they're not really invading the inner cell mass, if you will, of the embryo. They're just taking it from the edge, and they're looking for chromosomal abnormalities. Trisomy 18, trisomy 21, trisomy 13, et cetera, But the interesting thing about PGD that I find fascinating is that, patient gets their embryos PGD and they come back good, meaning, negative. There's nothing wrong with them. They're euploidic. And, I don't know anything about these grading systems, but it's like 4 triple B, it's like a great embryo, whatever. And they transfer the embryo and she doesn't get pregnant. And so the big question then, therefore, is why not? And the answer is nobody knows. But what I put to you for your consideration is that reproductive medicine today is not what it was 40 years ago, but it's not what it's going to be 10 years from now. So reproductive medicine today is based on the current capability of the diagnostics available today. But the diagnostics in 5 or 10 years are going to be much better and much more efficacious. And so, PGD is a very iffy thing. It can tell when there's a chromosomal abnormality, so you can tell when it's bad, but I don't believe you can necessarily tell when it's good.
That's good.
But, excuse me, anyway.
That's maybe God's work a bit, right, still, or may always remain that way, I don't know.
Yeah, who knows,
Yeah.
But it's real interesting, and like you said, it's all about creating a better environment, for the whole body and the whole mind and the whole soul, and by the way, I want to talk a little bit about stress,
right? And the
because
spirit,
I've always had
that spiritual
I've always
side
had a
of
pet
things, right?
peeve about stress.
Okay.
I've had a big pet peeve about it with acupuncturists, with reproductive doctors. A lot of people talk about stress.
It's a catch-all term.
Yeah, but check this out. Right? Let's talk about Syria right now.
Right.
There's a war going on in Syria, right? The Russians are there. We're probably there. The Syrians are there. This guy Bashar, is that his name? I think, leader of
rebel,
he's poisoning his own people with toxic gas, killing kids, all this stuff, right? So here's my question. Not for you, but it's just a general rhetorical question. Are there any women living in the village that's getting the hell bombed out of it, getting pregnant? And the answer is many, 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 many women are getting pregnant.
Right.
Let's talk about New York City, which is where I live. So, I can't talk too much about Canada. I've only been there a couple times, but I've lived here for 50 years. So certain parts of New York City are beautiful and expensive, and you have to be really rich to live there. And certain parts are like the worst hood, well, not the worst hood, but bad hoods.
Bombay-ish.
Like the projects and abject poverty. Everybody's getting high. The women are prostitutes, crack addicts. They got no money. If they got money, they're buying crack. They're not feeding their kids with it, with the money.
Yeah.
I mean, they're done.
Tough times, yeah.
Tough times, right? Guess what? You get pregnant all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious, in fact, what the relationship is between stress and infertility. And I think that I have an answer.
Okay.
Which is completely not based on any evidence or any studies. It's just based on my own experience. So here we go. I think stress affects different people differently.
Right.
So I think that stress may be a mitigating factor in fertility or in infertility, but it may not be at all. Right. And I think that as acupuncturists, I think it's important to try to de-stress the patient.
Right, of course.
That's not the most important thing. The most important thing is to improve the egg quality.
Right, right. And if stress is a part of that, that's a part of that. But if it's not, it's not. Is that
I mean, look, everybody's stressed.
Mm-hmm.
I ask every patient during my intake, I say, using the words mild, moderate, or severe, which word best describes your anxiety level?
Right.
And they all say either moderate or severe. And then I say, are you depressed? And most of them will say yes. And I'll say, that's good. And they'll look at me like that. What do you mean it's good? And I'll say, well, if you weren't anxious and you weren't depressed, you'd be insane.
You'd be lying to me.
You'd be lying to me, right? Like, how can anybody in 2018 not be depressed and anxious?
Right.
I mean, the world is in bad shape, right? So, in any event, stress is a little bit, in my opinion, an overplayed thing.
Overplayed.
Get the embryos good. Get the eggs good. Get the lining good. Get the sperm good. Then she's going to get pregnant.
Right. So if people know what you're saying, or this is my take, if people know that you're working toward improving egg quality, improving, sperm, improving the reproductive environment, that in turn is going to help with their stress anyway. Because
absolutely,
that's their goal. Well, their goal is baby, but their health-related goals to get there are clear. And often in life, maybe stress is just from chaos, from lack of direction, So if we can gift wrap what we're trying to do for them a little bit, put a bow on it, that in turn would help with the stress and the ultimate goal. That's kind of
I agree. That's a very, very well stated piece of information.
Nice.
Nicely said. I agree with you completely.
Oh boy, yeah. It's so. Can we just super logistics? I mean, you have. So the Berkley Center's been around for, that's 2 decades now. Congratulations on that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Number 2, can you explain a bit of its progression? Like, it started with you and a buddy from school, but then lots has changed since. Obviously, you brought on associates, you expanded, you moved, what's kind of, you went into an IVF clinic, you said, for a bit, or kind of...
Yeah, so I started right out of school with this fellow, this partner that I had, and it didn't work out, and we were kind of thrown out of the building because they were going to turn the building into a hotel. So that was the perfect time for he and I to separate.
Right. Okay.
And so then I went and took another office, and my office was 2 treatment rooms, a waiting room that could house about 2 people or 3 people, and a small office for myself.
This is Manhattan.
Yeah.
This is expensive square footage, I'm expecting.
Yeah. I mean, it was pretty cheap, actually, at that time, but... Relatively, yeah. And then my lease was coming up, and they didn't want to renew my lease because they didn't want any medical in the building. They were trying to get rid of all medical. So I was always, taking these offices with like 2-year leases and stuff like that. And so I decided that I was actually going to do something big.
Right.
And I was going to literally build a space. And that's the space that you saw.
Nice.
So the space that you were in, you have to realize, was like a disgusting, horrific garbage dump. Like, the broker took me up there, the real estate broker.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, are you kidding me?
It looked nice when I was there. So.
Well, here's the thing. I have no foresight. I can never envision what something is going to look like.
Okay.
I'm very bad. Some people can look at something and just see it.
Right.
I can't. I look at an empty, horrible space, and that's all I can see. So this real estate broker was a really cool guy. He said, wait a minute. And he's not an architect. He's a real estate broker.
Right.
He takes an envelope out of his pocket and he says, Mike, you got a pen? I give him the pen. And he like draws out a plan
Right.
on the back of the envelope.
Right.
And I'm like, holy crap, man, this could work. So then I call an architect.
Yeah.
And I get the architect up there. And, he says, yeah, it's going to be a big job because we're going to turn this place into something nice. And so
like big
I
job,
put
50 to 100.
Oh man,
in that vicinity.
I put a lot of money, and I put like 180 grand in there. Because don't forget,
yeah, it's a lot.
The floor that you were standing on, I put it in.
Right.
The ceilings, I put them in.
The lights, the HVAC.
The lights, the front desk. Yeah. I mean, it was just endless. And I would go there during the build out, and I would get a panic attack. There'd be 8 guys in there, and wires would be hanging from the ceilings, and dust and plaster would be around, and this guy's drilling and this guy's sawing, and I'm like, you gotta be kidding. This is never, ever gonna manifest. I mean, this is just like insane. They're just like, it's like they're bombing the place. And I just couldn't picture it, right?
Yeah.
And they built me a beautiful space, and I spent a fortune of money to do it, and I decided, I took a 10-year lease, which is a frightening thing.
Yeah. Big.
Yeah, it's frightening, right? What happens if you're doing bad and you're screwed? And the rent, my rent is a lot, man.
Yeah, that's a big place. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my rent is about $15,000 a month.
Seriously.
In that space.
Wow.
Yeah.
So how did you get through the anxiety of that? Like, I mean, you knew what was coming. You must have had a fairly busy practice by that point.
Yeah, I had a busy practice, and I said to myself, it's like I said, I did a lot of martial arts.
Right.
It's like when you're fighting somebody, you can counterpunch and stuff, but at some point you have to like go in and like take this guy out. You just have to go in. You have to walk forward.
Step
and just
up.
like,
Yeah.
you make it, you got to step up.
Yeah.
So I said, I don't care. I'm going to put this all on my credit cards. I'm going to borrow money from the bank. If I fail, I fail. That's it.
Right.
Screw it.
You got to take that leap, hey?
Yeah, I just did it. And it hasn't always been easy. I mean, business is like this for me and for everybody else.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. I mean, any acupuncturist that tells you they're busy all the time, I mean, they're probably not being truthful. Though some are, but I'm not. I'm not busy all the time. But I'm, I am a little dismayed. I must admit to you, I'm a little dismayed about my rent.
Yeah.
Because I have that rent, my apartment rent. And it's just like I kind of sometimes think I'm working just to pay my rent.
Right.
And but anyway, so I decided to leap in and take this space, and it's benefited me in many ways. Like now, when I invite a reproductive endocrinologist to come and visit me, they're thinking they're going to walk into like some one-room, like disgusting, like 5-story walk-up. And like my clinic is 5 times nicer than their clinic, right?
With the acupuncture poster on the wall.
Exactly. That's cute. Yeah. That's great. And like now they come in and they're like, holy goodness, and they like it gives me credibility also. Yeah. Yeah. And not only with the doctors, with patients. Yeah. Like I have patients that have come from other practitioners and they're like, oh yeah, I was in Chinatown. I was paying $35 a visit, but I'd have to walk up 6 flights of stairs, and there was dust all over the floor, and the guy didn't speak English, and it's like
through an opium den,
yeah. When they come into my clinic, they know they're in a place, and so I'm proud of that, and I'm doing well enough, and so I just went from this little office, 2-year lease, into a complete build-out with a 10-year lease. And I've renewed the lease twice, not for 10 years, but for 3 years I renewed it, and now I renewed it for another 2 years, because I don't know what I'm going to do at the end of 2 years. I mean, I'll keep practicing, but maybe I'll get out of that $15,000 a month space and just like sublet a space from somebody for $2,500 a month.
Contract, yeah.
Yeah, I don't need this. Like my waiting room can hold 20 people.
Right. Well, you have built your credibility. You are respected. These REs know you, and it took like you said, you stepping up, you jumping in, to the fight to show that you were committed, that you had the balls to do it, and that gains a lot of respect. And bottom line, and then you studied your ass off, and you know your shit better than anybody that I know, probably, as far as reproductive medicine is concerned. I mean, Michael is brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But correct me if I'm wrong, but your relationships with these REs stem from them seeing these qualities in you. That you basically do business with people you trust and then people you like. And Mike's very likable.
You're too kind. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you are, and that you trust, and that trust came from you showing, that you were ready to play.
Yeah, and I keep it very real with doctors. I don't go in there like I'm God's gift to infertile patients.
Right.
And I go in and I say, listen, I basically say what I said to you. I said, you're a mechanic. Right. And I don't mean that in a disrespectful way. I have nothing but respect for you. You spent 15 years in school. You're the man or you're the woman. I get it.
Yeah.
But you're a mechanic.
Yeah.
And all you can do is you can use what's presented to you, the sperm and the egg. Right. But I said, if you do a transvaginal ultrasound with a color Doppler after a patient, okay, let's say you do it before a patient gets acupuncture. So you see like this tiny little blood in the uterine cavity, in the the lining, whatever. And then you do acupuncture on the patient. And you do a transvaginal ultrasound with a color Doppler. It's completely red.
Right.
So what does that prove? It absolutely unequivocally proves, non-negotiable, undeniable, that acupuncture improves hemodynamics, right. And it does so trophically. So if you have lateral epicondylitis, that's this, right?
Yeah.
You put a needle in there,
yeah.
And why do you put the needle in it? Well, yeah, you can talk about it brings chi to the area and all that, but let's just talk from Western medicine. It's bringing blood to the area. It's the body says, hell, I'm being invaded by something, and all this blood flow and immunological mitigators come to the area, and now your elbow feels better.
Right.
So it's trophic,
right.
So when you do the correct acupuncture points, you're trying to reach the ovaries and more importantly, the follicles and the eggs. So I just tell these REs, look, what I do can't hurt your patient. I may not help your patient. Yeah. Right. Number one, right. I may not help your patient, but I won't hurt your patient. But I may help your patient.
Yeah.
So let's just do it, man. I'm happy to refer patients to you. And if you think it's appropriate, I'd be totally grateful for your referrals. Yeah. And I just keep it low-key and straight up.
Yeah. So,
and they're cool with that.
Can I ask you a question? Because there's people watching saying, I want to talk to doctors, and I'm going to be relentless like Mike was. I'm going to keep on them. And luckily, acupuncturists today have a massive body of research, which wasn't there, 10, 15, 20 years ago for sure, which they can, lay out in front of them and say, this may not be perfect, but at least there's a start. But how much, I think acupuncturists, when they first get out of school, are very caught up in the synophilia, or that passion that Chinese medicine can help everything. And how, when you spoke to REs or these specialists, how often did you use the word qi? Or,
never.
Or yin or yang? Thank you. Okay.
Never, ever once.
Right. You had to reframe it, right?
As soon as you get in front of a doctor, and in fact, I don't even talk that way to patients.
Right. No. Yeah.
I mean, once you talk like that to a patient, they just think, this guy's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. Because you have to. Listen, do you speak German?
No.
Neither do I. But let's just make believe that I did.
Okay.
And I just started speaking to you in German right now. You wouldn't know what I was talking about. So how could we have a conversation? How could we relate to each other?
Right.
So you have to have a common ground that enables good back and forth communication and relating.
Right.
So patients don't know what qi is and yin and yang deficiency and yang deficiency. They don't know what that stuff is. So I only talk Western medicine. Now, sometimes a patient will ask me, how does acupuncture help? And I'll explain it in Western terms. I'll say, look, basically what acupuncture does in my hands is it improves hemodynamics to your ovaries, which improves the delivery of blah, 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 and it improves the excretion of debris. And as a result, there's a possibility that we can improve your eggs, the egg quality. We're working on primordial follicles, not follicles that are 7 millimeters or 8 millimeters or 10 millimeters. We're working on, follicles that are measured in micrometers, not millimeters. And hopefully by the time it becomes a grafting follicle, a mature follicle, it may be better than the last cohort of follicles. And so I never talk that way to a patient, and I never talk that way to a doctor. I basically tell the doctor the same thing I say to the patient. Yeah. And the doctor can understand that. Yeah. Yeah. And then when the doctor says to me, well, how do you know that it improves blood flow? I just tell them the story that I told you about the transvaginal ultrasound with a color Doppler. Yeah. And it's undeniable. They can't say anything to me. That research I'll say, bro, let's do it together. Yeah. Yeah. You'll see.
Yeah, they've all got them in their office, so.
Right. So.
Crazy. Okay, so what, this is great, but we could go on forever, and I'm excited to see you in a couple of months so we can
me too.
Hang out and
drinks and dinner,
drinks and carry on this conversation. But
and forget even going to the courses. Just let's meet at 8 in the morning. Right. Have breakfast and just have drinks all day and dinner at night, and we'll just hang out.
Yes, tell Lauren to sign us in.
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah, cool. I'm excited about that, but I don't want to take up too much of your time today. I know you've got some personal nourishment plans, but what are you doing these days? What are you passionate about? I see the articles that you write, that you post on LinkedIn and Facebook. They are brilliant. I mean, anyone wanting to treat fertility with acupuncture, could just follow Mike and there's your education. But what are you up to?
So that's very kind of you to say. I'm so grateful. That's so sweet. Thank you very much. So my life is a little different now. For years I was doing nothing but Chinese medicine. Just studying, going to every ASRM, the IS, what is it called? The thing in Canada that we're going to, the IFS.
Oh, yeah. CFAS is our Western medical counterpart to ASRM, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's just my life, And now it no longer is. It's now a part of my life. Right. So, I'm very interested in, I train in judo. Okay. Which is completely insane based on my age, but that's probably why I chose to do it, because, I'm one of these guys, I jumped in and built the clinic. Right. I don't care. I'm 61 years old and I'm fighting with 25-year-olds. Bring it, bro. Bring it. And it's I'm just having a great time with that. I'm in the gym 2 to 3 days a week. I do judo. I do judo 4 times a week. Wow. So I'm about staying in good shape.
Clearly do that. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, man. Mm-hmm. And I'm about learning this new martial art. I'm doing it for 6 years, but it's really hard for me, and so I'm not very good at it, but I still enjoy it, and it's fun for me. And I'm being a lot more social. In the past, I wouldn't even see anybody. I can't, bro. I can't. No, I got to study, man. Tomorrow. Yeah. And now, I'm going out. I go to parties. I'm just more human. I'm just more relaxed. I'm just chilling, as we say in New York. Yeah. I'm working hard, but I'm not working that hard. I've like today's Monday. I'm not at work. Right. I take Mondays off, so I give myself a 3-day weekend. So there's a lot that I want to do. I don't know if I'll get to do it all. I love to sing. Right.
And really? Cool.
Yeah, and I'd like to take voice lessons. Yeah. I never seem to get to do it just because I can't do many more things. I'm just always involved. Yeah. I really like photography, though I've never taken many pictures, but I wanted to take a photography class.
You're finding balance.
Yeah, I'm finding balance after all this time.
So you're
And
practicing the medicine personally more.
and
Oh, the irony.
that's such a cool thing you just said, because it's like I couldn't do that in the beginning. In fact, I don't think any of us can do it in the beginning. Like it takes years to get to that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm finally there, like
Awesome.
I'm not sitting here saying to myself, Spence, check this out, right? If this was 10 years ago, I'd be like, dude, what are you doing home? What is wrong with you? Get your butt up and get into the office. Even if you don't have any patients,
Right.
go in there and market. Do something. Be
Right.
productive.
Right.
Let me tell you what I'm doing when you and I hang up. I'm going to get into bed and I'm going to finish reading some silly novel that I'm reading.
Good for you, man.
Then I may decide to shave if I can get the energy up to do it. Then I'm going to this wonderful food store called Whole Foods.
Okay, right.
Yep. And I'm going to go shopping. And then tonight I'm going to have dinner with a friend, have a couple of glasses of wine, and come home and get to sleep at 11 o'clock and then go to work tomorrow.
Nice.
That's what I'm doing with the rest of my day.
Nice.
And I have to tell you that I absolutely love it.
Good man. Good man.
So there's a lot of like tension of like having to build the practice and having to be on stage every single day.
Yeah.
That's just gone like this.
Nice. Nice.
So I'm much more mellow. I'm much more comfortable in my own skin. And, I just want to give one more message,
Perfect.
which again is totally, I'm just segueing here and there.
Yeah.
So some things I see online on these acupuncture things on Facebook. There's different acupuncture sites, acupuncture for infertility, all these different
Groups.
pages, groups. So like, I see something like this. I see it not infrequently. Like I have a patient and I think she has endometriosis. Like, what's the best way for me to treat her? Now, when I read that, it causes me tremendous dismay.
Right. I get it.
Because it shows me that you don't know what the hell you're talking about or what the hell you're doing. First of all, you don't know if the patient has endometriosis.
Right.
There's only, if you do an ultrasound and she has endometriosis on the ovary, you can see it. If you can't see it on the ovary, she can still have it. How do you see it? Through a diagnostic laparoscopy, exactly. And number two, you cannot treat it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't treat it. What can treat it? A laparoscopy.
Right. That's it.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing. Oh, my patient has this, 10 centimeter fibroid. Can somebody recommend an herbal formula to shrink the fibroid? Listen, are you tripping?
Right.
Are you smoking that good ganja?
Yeah.
She needs to go to the hospital and get a surgery and get a myomectomy. So my message, this is not to the brilliant acupuncturists, it's to the ones who have the potential to be brilliant, the ones who are just starting out.
Potential good. Yeah.
Yeah, is stay in your lane. Know what you can do, but more importantly, know what you can't do.
Right.
This is not about you, it's about your patient. It's not about you proving that you can shrink a humongous fibroid. It's not about you thinking you can treat endometriosis. You can't.
Right.
So just give it up. Do what you can do. And that's a really important lesson.
Right.
You don't have to be God. You're not God.
No.
You're the acupuncturist.
Yeah.
Do your job.
Right.
That's a very important thing for acupuncturists to know.
So if I can reframe, you've seen acupuncture really fall into finding its place and what it can help with and what it can't, and that is wisdom that is out there now because of people like yourself, that have done the work and seen what's possible and what's not, and that information is out there, so there's no excuse to be making these ridiculous traditional Chinese medicine can treat anything promises that so many people do, right?
Absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, why would you ever want to pretend that you can do something that you have no idea?
Well, I don't think they're pretending.
Well, or
Because pretending is like a malicious act.
Right,
I
right.
think that they actually think,
Believe. Okay.
they
Yeah.
believe that they can do it.
Right.
And so there's two things that play into this.
Okay.
One is ego. I can
Right.
fix anything.
Right.
And the other thing is, oh, I hate Western medicine. I
Right.
hate drugs. These doctors, all they want to do is surgery. Listen, I'm going to tell this listening audience the following. If Western medicine was not extant, we would all be dead by the time we're 35 years old.
Right. Right.
Western medicine is brilliant. It's important.
Mm-hmm.
It's life-giving. It's life-saving. It is to be embraced.
Right.
Doctors give out inappropriate prescriptions for opioids? Yes. Do doctors do some bad things? Yes.
Do
But
acupuncturists.
but that doesn't mean that Western medicine should be, you
Agreed.
throw the baby out with the bathwater. Is that the saying?
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So these acupuncturists, many acupuncturists, hate Western medicine. I mean, that's a sure sign of ignorance. Remember, it takes a village. They can do things we cannot do. Don't forget that. And we can do things they cannot do.
Yeah.
Don't forget that. And that's why this is how it should look, not this.
Right.
This is how it should look. So I tell acupuncturists, embrace Western medicine, embrace reproductive medicine, embrace Chinese medicine. Dan Inosanto, who was one of Bruce Lee's trainers and teachers and friends, he wrote this book. I think it was Dan Inosanto. It might have been Bruce Lee, but the name of the book is Absorb What Is Useful and Discard the Rest.
Okay.
And that's good information, If your patient is trying to get pregnant and she can't, send her to a reproductive endocrinologist. I don't treat a patient. I will not treat a patient unless she's being seen by an RE.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay.
Listen, how do you know her tubes are good?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know she doesn't have five big polyps? Yeah. How do you know she doesn't have fibroids in the fundus?
Yeah.
How do you know the guy's sperm is good?
Yeah.
How do you know she doesn't have immunological, autoimmune stuff that's attacking the embryos, activated natural killer cells?
Right.
You don't know anything.
Right.
Oh, I know. Excuse me. You're going to get all the data from the pulse and the tongue, right? Not.
You're not. Yeah. I couldn't agree more, Mike. All this is just is great info, and thank you for always your willingness to share and be honest, because that is what people are searching for these days. And you've been in this racket for 20 years, and you have seen a lot, and you dove in. You didn't sit on the outskirts. You needed to be the primary breadwinner of your life, so this had to be a career, not a hobby.
Indeed.
And you just did what it took, and you were at the start of a curve, and so that you're the right guy to be there, because you got the balls and the drive and the passion and
thank you so much. It's very kind of you.
Well, it's just we appreciate. I mean, and newer practitioners should even more so. About the realistic nature of what you're getting into, and how it shouldn't be some sort of dogmatic baloney. It's about what can you help, find that out, and deliver it, and be honest, and learn
100%.
how to communicate it. Okay, yeah, great.
100%. I agree. I'm with you, man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you to gift wrap what you're passionate about now these days is you, and your health and your life, and yeah.
That's right. I love to eat.
Or
I love to go to good restaurants.
Yeah.
I like to travel. I've been to Barcelona. I've been to Florence. I've been to Cartagena. I go to Puerto Rico all the time. I go to South Beach, Florida all the time. I'm just... Vancouver I love. And I went to Montreal on vacation.
Yeah, beautiful.
To Old Montreal, which is lovely.
Yeah.
And so, it's true. I'm just spending more time, enjoying me and my relationship to the world and to the community. And so I'm still very much involved in the medicine, but it's just not who I am in total anymore. And I must tell you, it feels good.
Do you believe that there's ways that people could fast forward to your where you're at, or is there just a process and everyone has to go through it? You got to take your lumps, you got to work hard, you got to persevere, you got to learn and gain wisdom. You can't buy that.
Yeah, it's a great question, I'm not sure I have an answer. I can only talk about my journey. And there's like nothing that I did.
Right.
It's like, well, let me tell you this thing, right? Like 10 years ago, I started meditating. That changed my life. No, that's
Right.
not true. I never
Okay.
did
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Yeah.
Like there's nothing that I did that like flipped the switch. I want to tell you what I think. It's going to sound kind of odd.
Okay.
I got tired.
Right.
I got tired physically and emotionally. I mean, I'm in very good shape physically, but I just mean like treating patients all day long. And I mean, I love my patients and I love to treat, but it's exhausting.
Right. It's a lot.
And doing this for like 21 years, man, I just got beat. I mean, I'm in the game
Yeah.
still,
Yeah.
but I mean, I just said, dude, listen, you could be dead tomorrow.
Yeah.
You could kill over with a heart attack, man.
Right.
You've got to just start to like pay attention to what you want to do. Yeah, I want to do the medicine, but is that all I want to do? No.
Right.
So I just think, I think that somebody has to get tired first,
Right. Right.
or else they have to be really, really wise.
Right.
And I wasn't really wise. I just had to I just had to get beat up a little bit. And then I said, okay, I'm going to start reading some novels again and like relaxing.
Right.
So
Thank you. I mean, that's why I want to do these podcasts, mostly for selfish reasons, but, learn from people, the people that are ripping it in different ways and that I've grown to respect and that are respected in the industry and stuff, and find out it's like, well, what's the wisdom you've got now and what got you there? So maybe we can, expedite our own journeys, or the listener or what a viewer's journeys, toward this Wu Wei or whatever the hell you want to call, just taking care of yourself, practicing our own medicine on
right,
ourselves.
indeed.
Yeah. So thank you so much you're always honest. You're always great. And I so look forward to seeing you again soon at the IFS. It'll be awesome.
Yeah. So I want to thank you so much for this great opportunity. I've really enjoyed it. Just like being able to see you,
Yeah.
it's
Cool.
nice,
Yeah.
because I miss you. And it's great to see you, and
Yeah. Ditto.
this was a lot of fun. Just like a fun conversation. I hope that I made some kind of minor contribution to anybody that's listening. And man, thank you so much. And
Awesome.
I can't wait to give you a hug, man, and to have
Yeah.
dinner and
Ditto.
drinks, and we'll have a great time.
Ditto, we will for sure. Okay,
All right,
Mike.
man. God bless.
I'm excited. Yeah, God bless to you too, and we'll chat with you again very soon. Thanks for being here today,
Yeah,
Mike.
I'll see you in April.
All right.